Hello. It's a rather cold afternoon and it's very late, so I've got to be as quick as possible, not just because I need to make videos more quickly, but also because it'll be dark very soon. I made a video before about pushing punches and combat sports. I think it's an important point because it's something people spread a lot of misinformation about. The video wasn't very good. It was too long. I had 5 or 6 important points to make, dragged it out to half an hour. I had to move halfway through the video and the whole thing was a mess. Let's see if I can do a better job very quickly today. Here goes. Hope you'll excuse me if I speak very quickly, but I really do want to do quite a quick job of this. So many people who make videos online, as well as people who train offline, say they insist as though it's the most important thing in the world. Don't push punches, don't push punches. And if somebody, sometimes it seems, puts a bit of power into a punch, people will say, he pushed that punch, what the hell is he doing? He's an idiot. It's an oversimplification. First, let's just look at an example. I would like to think this would be enough. I think this example would be enough if more people were actually punching bags themselves rather than just sitting, looking at videos, making judgments based on that. Now, what's going to hurt more? That or obviously the second. Of course it is, because there's a lot more power going into the punches, a lot more power on impact with the target. I think that sometimes people overdo it and they are so desperate to not push a punch that they end up tapping like that. There's times you want to tap like that, especially if you're fainting, especially if you want to confuse somebody, set them up for a harder punch, something like that. But it's not what you want to do all of the time by any means. Here's where it's a simplification, an oversimplification. It's not that there's something wrong with, in slow motion here, so don't say I'm punching too slowly, with going into the target a little bit. Nothing wrong with it at all. Problem is, you don't want your hand to be out there when you need it here or here, either to guard or to punch again. So perhaps rather than saying, don't push punches, snap your punches, they should say, just get your hands back to where you need them as quickly as possible. And as I mentioned in a longer video, be much quicker this time, when Shane Fazan had a video talking about pushing punches, he first said, snap your punches, he did that, nice punch. And he said, don't push them, and he did that, and he left it there. Obviously it's a terrible punch if you're going to leave it there. What I'm saying is it's not a fair comparison. You could really say, there's the snap, and there's a push. This was back in plenty of time, did a lot more damage. So really, it's not that there's such a bad thing about hitting the target and carrying on for an inch or two, maybe even a few inches. It's that your hands probably need to be somewhere else. So of course, if you're doing this, then you've got a problem. The problem there isn't pushing punches. There are many problems there. Going to talk briefly about fetishism. Wonder if you know what that is. A lot of people don't these days. They think that fetishism has something to do with sexual acts, Wellington boots, rubber outfits. That's not what fetishism really is. Fetishism is when you imbue something, an item, a concept, an idea, with far more importance than it can really have. I used to fetishize thrash metal music. I used to think, as long as I've got some good thrash bands to listen to, whatever happens in life, I can handle it. Nothing else matters much. Nothing wrong with liking music a great deal, but that was going too far. Young people, children, fetishize things a lot. When you have a child who's not allowed to go to the park today, you've ruined my life. That's fetishism. It's when you believe something far worse, far more important, far more devastating than it really can be. I think people fetishize the idea of not pushing punches to the point, as I've said, that if somebody puts in a good punch that pushes a bag a bit, they're going to be angry about it and think they're doing something wrong, and they're probably not doing something wrong. What you really need to do is punch appropriately, and sometimes you want to just tap very quickly. But a lot of the time you don't. I think you're going to have more of that in boxing, when people have protection on their hands and they guard a lot more than in other martial arts, because you know that punches are coming around here. You don't have to guard very low. You don't have kicks coming for you that can only really move out of the way of. So you're far more likely to pepper the opponent with punches in boxing and perhaps knock them insensible through multiple punches rather than looking for a single knockout. I don't think that's the case so much in Muay Thai, karate, and certainly not in UFC. I'll have a couple of UFC clips, one UFC clip most likely at the end of this video, and apart from looking for some pushing punches in that fight, you also see how some of the movement, and people should know this, some of the movement is really unconventional. Despite what you'll be taught by a lot of boxing coaches, they don't spend the whole time perfectly guarded, perfectly straight, one punch in, one punch out. They might do that. Might come with a pushing punch when they've distracted the opponent with that. So really, you want a punch of appropriate power at the right time for the circumstance you're in, and there's every chance it won't be, but it might be instead. The bag swung there. Brings me on to one more thing I want to say in this short video where I think I've covered all the points I really wanted to make. Recently, a rather well-known and good YouTube video maker who talks about boxing in particular, I'm not sure if it's a recent video or if I just happened to see it recently. Anyway, starts off bag swinging. This is an example of how people sometimes lose track of what makes sense because they want to make a point so strongly. And he wanted to make the point of, I'm in the gym, I'm hitting a bag, I'm making it swing, I'm an idiot. If your bag's swinging too much, it's not much use to you. But I don't want a stable bag, I don't want somebody holding it, I don't want it tethered, I want it to move so I can move around with it. So the idea that a swinging bag is a bad thing in itself, I think is very wrong. But what struck me is while he was making the video and he had it swinging, he said, even if the bag's swinging back towards you and you punch it again, then it's going to swing even more. That's simply wrong. If the bag's swinging towards you and you punch it again, it will stop or swing less. So what he said there, completely against the laws of physics. I'm not holding it against him. I think he just wanted to make a joke, make a point, focused on that, and he mixed up. I don't know, I imagine he planned that. I don't think it was spontaneous, but it's wrong. And why this is interesting is you can measure the power of a punch to some degree by seeing how much it stops a bag. Stationary bag, you can just see how much it moves with a punch, but you can, when a bag's approaching you and it's got energy in it moving towards you, you can see how effectively you can stop it. And that might just tell us, to get us back to the subject at hand, how effective the different types of punch are. So let me just put this up, as far as it will go, coming back, and now tap, 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 still coming towards me. And the same again, push, and the bag stopped. Which of those punches put more power into the bag? The tap, 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 obviously not a lot of power, or the quick stop, that definitely put more power into the bag. There's no way to argue with that. But you still want it back here. It's no good holding it out there if you're in a fight, by any means at all. I think that's it. One of the quicker videos I've made. I'm now going to add a small section with samples from some fights. 2 fights, I think it will be. Going to go indoors to do that. And I hope that I don't get my first copyright strike for doing it. Let's see. See you in a bit.
When I closed the last part of the video, I said see you in a bit, but you won't see me because I don't have video for this. Just want to show small pieces of 2 fight clips. I would be doing this outside if I was doing it properly, but it's too dark, so I'm just going to use the thumbnail in the background. Doesn't really matter, won't be there for long. Going to first have a look at Shane Fazan and Feras Sahabi. I picked this video because Shane Fazan is one of the first people I saw talking about not pushing punches. Don't think he's wrong, I don't think he's obsessed with it. It was a quick video, but it was one of the first ones that came to mind when I focused on the subject. And I also picked it because I think Feras Sahabi is great. And I remembered immediately there are some push punches in this. If anyone has any impression that I don't like Shane Fazan or anything like that, then it's completely wrong. I think Shane Fazan's great.
GSP.
frozen it for a second because I want you to pay attention to what happens next. So how he ducks, and he ducks down by bending his torso and using his legs. And just as people will see a pushed punch and say, what are you doing, you're an idiot because you pushed that punch, some people will do the same if they see you lower yourself without only using your legs and keeping a straight torso. Well, it's another example of how some of these things that people obsess with aren't really accurate, practical all of the time. Bit of a push, taps, push, missed push, push. There are a few examples from one particularly skilled and respected trainer. Now let's have a look at Sean Strickland. Not very conventional from either of them, and maybe conventional expectations aren't always the best thing. Bit of a push there, missed. Israel's was a tap. Slightly clumsy kicks. Of course he's brilliant, but those kicks weren't well controlled. Bit of a push, more of a push, and there you had a bit more of a push because you didn't quite reach him with the previous attempts. Push and slow. Certainly not snapping or popping. And a wonderful push punch doing just what I would expect it to do. The point of that was just to see that sometimes you do want to push punches, sometimes you don't. Pushing punches isn't the most evil, terrible thing you can possibly do in combat sports. And I think it was also interesting to see that when people are fighting, skilled, effective fighters, they will often do things that a lot of people viewing at home might condemn, but they are practical in a real fight, and sometimes doing what your introductory boxing coach taught you to do isn't necessarily the best thing to do. Trying to stick to certain positions, sometimes you've got to move with other people and not like a robot. Well, the video turned out to be a bit longer than I might have hoped, but it's a bit different when you are looking at other people's material. Hope I don't get a copyright strike. I'll find out in about 10 minutes. And thanks for watching. I'm Mark. See you next time. Cheers.